Good evening, everyone. We'll call the October 20th, 2022 council meeting to order. I'd ask for everyone to rise for the invocation given by Reverend Paul Means of Northwood Presbyterian Church. Good evening, Pastor.
Good evening.
Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Gracious and almighty God, we thank you for your love and faithfulness, your goodness and grace, which we experience in so many ways. We come before you knowing that you are more powerful than our fears, more gracious than our worst shortcomings, stronger than our deepest failures. We lift our prayers today full of hope and expectancy, for you are the great provider and healer and sustainer. We begin by praying for all who lack the basic necessities of life, like food, clothing, and a place to live, for all whose hearts are burdened by overwhelming struggles and worries too great to bear. Let your Spirit carry them forward. For all whose lives are torn asunder by loss and hurt, let your grace bring new life. For those whose families are divided by misunderstanding, turmoil, heartache, and unrest, may your love be as a healing balm. For those who are discouraged and confused, may your wisdom bring clarity and understanding. As we gather here this evening, we give you thanks and praise for the country in which we live, the United States of America, for the breadth and the depth of land and sea that make up our nation, for the abundance of natural resources, for the great diversity of people who have worked hard and sacrificed much to make this the land of the free. Dear Lord, we don't ask for uniformity, but we do ask for unity, a unity which comes from mutual respect and a desire to treat others in the same way we ourselves would like to be treated. We give you thanks for the beautiful state of Florida and for the wonderful city of Clearwater in which we live. We pray your blessing on our state and on our city. We ask, dear Lord, that you will bless those who hold office in the government of Clearwater, lead the city council in a spirit of wisdom, compassion, truth, and justice, guide them in their work and deliberations. May grace and understanding undergird their conversations with each other as they engage challenging issues. May decisions made and actions taken serve the common good and promote the human flourishing of all people. And gracious and living God, we remember all the people and communities that have experienced the overwhelming devastation and destructive impact of Hurricane Ian. We ask that you will be with them, strengthen them, give them courage and hope. We are thankful for the great response of so many to come alongside these communities, and we again pray that you will help them rebuild. And we ask all this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor. We appreciate those inspiring words. We are going to, first of all, introduce the dais. On my far right is City Manager John Jennings.
Good evening.
Councilmember Albritton.
Good evening.
Councilmember Beckman.
Good evening.
Councilmember Bunker.
Good evening.
Councilmember Teixeira.
Good evening.
And pinch hitting tonight, our Assistant City Attorney, Owen Kohler. Our City Attorney is at a conference. So we are going to start out with some special recognition and a service award. So for 30 years of service, if I could have our Police Chief, Dan Slaughter, come forward.
Chief Daniel Slaughter, Police Chief, 30 years of service. Chief Daniel Slaughter began his career with the Clearwater Police Department in October 1992. After 8 years as an officer, he was promoted to sergeant in 2000, lieutenant in 2009, and major in 2012. Then in August 2014, he was sworn in as the Clearwater Police Department's 13th Chief of Police, commanding the third largest law enforcement agency in Pinellas County. During his time as chief, he created a special enforcement unit that focuses on prolific and chronic offenders, advanced the use of technology in policing by implementing a real-time crime center, and established the Officer-Friendly Book Club, where officers read monthly to preschool-age children. Chief Slaughter now serves as the Vice President on the Board of Directors for the Police Executive Research Forum and as the parliamentarian on the Executive Board for the Florida Police Chiefs Association. He is also an active board member for Clearwater for Youth, Tampa Bay Thrives, and Directions for Living. He is also the past president of the Tampa Bay Area Chiefs of Police, which includes more than 100 law enforcement public safety professionals from 46 law enforcement entities throughout the state. And he is currently the treasurer of their Education and Research Foundation. For 3 decades, Chief Slaughter has served our city and helped bridge numerous links to organizations and residents of our community. He has helped to instill a community champion mentality that exemplifies our agency. Chief, thank you for your leadership and your dedication to the city. Signed, Frank V. Hibbard, Mayor.
Congratulations, Chief. Thank you for all you do.
Thanks for all the help, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Next, we have a proclamation for Red Ribbon Week 2022, and if I could have Michelle Edwards, the Special Projects and Rising Above Committee Coordinator at the Clearwater Neighborhood Family Center. And is Ms. Harris here too? Michelle?
No, in fact, yes, she is. She's right here.
So we also have Lisa Harris. I don't
Yes.
see Ramon in the crowd.
He's not here, and we apologize that Terry Jones wasn't able to make it.
That's okay, everybody's busy.
That's for
We
sure.
still have you, and we have the proclamation.
Well, thank you so much.
Whereas alcohol and drug abuse in this nation have reached epidemic stages, and whereas residents should be encouraged to support drug prevention educational programs and to remain committed to a drug-free community, and whereas the National Red Ribbon Campaign offers citizens the opportunity to affirm their commitment not to use illegal drugs and not to use legal drugs illegally, and whereas businesses, governments, parents, law enforcement, media, medical institutions, religious institutions, schools, senior citizens, service organizations, and youth can demonstrate their commitment to healthy, drug-free lifestyles by wearing and displaying red ribbons during this week-long campaign. Now therefore, I, Frank V. Hibbard, Mayor of the City of Clearwater, Florida, on behalf of the Clearwater City Council, do hereby proclaim October 23rd through the 31st, 2022 to be Red Ribbon Week in Clearwater.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And we appreciate all of you, your council, the members, or city officials, and also the Clearwater neighborhood. We know that Red Ribbon is very important. It's actually an event that we've celebrated for many years. In fact, you've signed this proclamation about 3 or 4 years for us. And it always represents, it does represent one of the, I don't know why I'm nervous. It represents one of the drug enforcement agents that actually died for us so that we would not have these drugs come into our area. In fact, his name was Enrique Carmina. And what his mother did, because of this, she actually has this celebration set up. It's been here for years. And the Clearwater Neighborhood Family Center really takes this seriously, and we appreciate everything that you guys have done for us. And we have little packets for you with a ribbon.
Thank you very much. Certainly important. Can destroy lives, families, our economy. It certainly has a negative impact. So we appreciate what you're instilling in our youth.
And we thank you very much. Thank you.
Watch the rise here, Michelle. Everybody trips on that. We don't want you tripping. So,
We have a red hat for you. I understand now what
you
you're
see?
referring to.
Okay. Thank you very
This is
much.
for you.
Thank you so
I'll
much.
pass these down.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll get some.
Okay.
You're welcome.
We will see you next week.
Yes, I'm so
Okay.
excited.
And there you are.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Yes, ma'am.
Have a good day.
Now, if I could have Harry Glenn come forward, he is going to give us a report. Harry is our representative up in Washington from Panskoik, and he's going to be talking about the Inflation Reduction Act.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Nice to be with you today. Councilman Algren, nice to be with you a second time today. It was a very nice event today in St. Petersburg. Mr. Jennings, good to be with you again. Before I start on the Inflation Reduction Act, just wanted to, I talked to Rosemary earlier this week, wanted to give you an update. You know, as we talked about the last time I was here, Congress has reinstituted the congressional earmarking process last year and for the second time this year, and the city's done very well in the process. Last year there were 3 city projects that were funded, $1.5 million for Imagine Clearwater, which, by the way, Mayor, is coming out of the ground really nicely. I just got a good look at it at the library here, and I understand that funding has been secured by the city. There was another, Chief, congratulations on 30 years, another $144,000 in the bills last year for the police department's mental health co-worker, co-responder program. And there was $1.75 million for a City of Clearwater, Pinellas County joint project to provide computer-aided dispatch for law enforcement officers. So those were last year's programs. And then this year, Congressman Christ included $949,500 for a solar installation of solar panels on some city-owned facilities. So that legislation is pending in Congress right now. As you know, we have an election coming up in less than 3 weeks, and Congress will reconvene on November 14th and dispose of those last appropriations bills. So hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have some good news for you on that 4th project. So the city's done very well in there. And last year when I was here, you had me come and we talked about the the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which was a 1,300-page bill by Congress on it was actually a bipartisan bill to provide a whole array of funding for infrastructure projects, roadways, climate, and other things. And we had pretty good discussion about those projects. Just completed, for the most part, the first year of those new grant cycles. There'll be 4 more cycles to go, and we're going to be working with your committee staff to see if we can find some good matches for the city on that program. And so what we're here to talk about today is the latest large bill that Congress passed, was signed into law in August by the President. It's called the Inflation Reduction Act. And just by way of background, it started out early in the administration in 2021. It was called Build Back Better. It was a very large bill. It was reduced in size during the current year, and finally Congress reached agreement in August. And I just the political science 101 lesson today, all these bills that we've been talking about, the COVID assistance that the city's been receiving, the infrastructure bill, and now this Inflation Reduction Act, we're kind of done outside the usual legislative process. Typically, the House will work on a bill, and the committees will report a bill, and the House will work on it, amend it, and then they'll pass it and send it to the Senate, and the same thing will happen in the Senate, and everybody will get together and have a conference committee and work these things out. None of these bills have been developed like that. And so what's ended up happening is a small number of members of Congress have taken some ideas and put them in a bill. There's been really very little legislative history and very little advice from the Congress on how to implement these programs. And so the agencies are being left in the infrastructure bill and now this Inflation Reduction Act to try and figure out what the Congress intend and how to make that happen. So the things I'm going to talk about today on the Inflation Reduction Act, Congress provided some direction, but not the typical amount of direction that the agencies need. So they're going to spend some time, a couple months, trying to figure out how they're going to implement all these programs. So what I'm going to tell you is what we know today. What we know today will probably change over the next couple months, and we'll be sure to stay in touch with your staff to make sure that they know what these programs are and how they're going to be implemented. So this bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, was about a 730-page bill. And I think, do we have the, oh, here we are. Oops. There we go. So the Inflation Reduction Act was a 730-page bill, and I think you all have a summary of it. It creates about 30 mostly new programs within the federal government. Some are tax credits, some are rebate programs, and some are direct grants to individuals, organizations, and state and local governments. But generally, you've heard about this bill. To remind you, there are revenue provisions in this bill which set a 15% corporate minimum tax. There's a prescription drug reduction reform program to reduce Medicare spending on prescription drugs, additional IRS enforcement, stock buyback fee, and some loss limitation extensions, which generated revenue to pay for part of this bill. But the part we're going to focus on today is the energy security and climate change provision, which is about a $370 billion slug of new programs to help communities respond primarily to the energy and climate change situation. I did include in here, just so you have it for your future use, some of the health provisions on capping prescription drug prices, providing vaccines free of charge through the Medicare program, and extending some of the health care plan that was set up under President Obama to continue to the premium subsidies. Second thing is, and I feel, Mayor, you're much more adept at financial matters than I am on these things, but one of the things that this bill does, it sets up a series of tax credits to encourage individuals, organizations, and state and local governments to invest in clean energy alternatives. And so, because of your nature you don't pay federal income tax, you're not a for-profit organization, the tax credits wouldn't ordinarily do you any good. And so what they've set up in this bill is a system to do what they call make direct payments to communities. And so in lieu of, if you were a company and you were going to buy heavy equipment, and it would be electric heavy equipment, you could get a tax credit up to 30% for some of that, purchase some of that equipment. That benefit wouldn't help you. And so what the Treasury is going to be working on is a system where communities, state and local governments can apply to Treasury to be reimbursed for basically what would be the tax credit for any of these purchases that you make, whether it's for energy efficiency systems or equipment or some of the other things we're going to talk about here. And what I will tell you is this is kind of Treasury's a little nervous about this. This is kind of a murky area for them and how they're going to handle this money, how they're going to dispense this money back to the communities. You know how long it took to get the COVID assistance money out to the communities and all the reporting that's been required on that. So there's going to be some time before they take action on this. And we'll continue to work with you on this. I know the National League of Cities, the Conference of Mayors, and National Association of Counties are all actively working with the Department of Treasury to make sure that this is not an onerous system for communities like yours. In other words, they're going to try and reward you with funding, but make you spend large sums of money trying to keep track of all the paperwork. So we'll work with you on that. We'll let you know how that goes. The other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is some of these tax credits we're going to talk about. I wanted to give you the benefit of all the programs that are in here. I recognize that many of these probably won't be things that you're interested in. Nuclear power is not something the city is involved with. So some of these things, port infrastructure is not something you're involved with. But I just put it out there so you could see the full scope of the programs. And we also identify under each of these programs which programs will be eligible for the direct payment from Treasury. So if you decide to move forward with one of these programs, these are some programs that you would get funding back. And that direct payment could go back in the form of a 30% tax credit, a 40% tax credit. Some go higher depending on the types of neighborhoods that they're in. So the first one we list up here is a production tax credit. This is one of those I don't think will really impact you. It's to provide a tax credit for organizations that provide electricity transmission to large electric transmission facilities. This is to encourage them to try and streamline their system, make them more energy efficient and more responsive. These are eligible for direct pay, but you don't have an electric generation system, so I don't think that applies to you. The second one, though, is called the Energy Investment Tax Credit, and this is one that could potentially help you. It does allow for a tax credit to come back to community, state, and local governments if you invest in a variety of energy projects, including installation of solar arrays and other equipment, fiber optic, fuel cell, wind, offshore wind, combined heat power, and waste energy recovery. I know the county has a waste energy recovery facility. I don't think that you do. But this is the first of the programs that may be of interest to you as a community and for which you would be eligible for direct pay from the Treasury. Next two programs I just throw out there, carbon capture credit. I'm not sure that's something you're going to pursue. And clean energy hydrogen tax credit. This is a developing new energy source that organizations are looking at. I don't think you're going to be producing any clean energy anytime soon, but it is one that I know some other entities in Florida, including some of the power companies, are looking to work cooperatively to come up with a clean energy program for Florida. Likewise, on the top of this page is, again, nuclear investment tax credit. Not sure that's something that will help you, but the next one down is one that will clearly help you on commercial clean vehicle tax credit. I know that you already have some natural gas generating powered vehicles that are used within the company. I've been out to see the Clearwater gas facility where you refuel those. These are for zero emission buses and heavy equipment like garbage trucks and dump trucks and other large equipment. Communities would be eligible for up to a 30% credit if you invest in energy efficient vehicles of this type. Mobile machinery, commercial fuel cell vehicles all would be eligible for the credit. And again, this is one that you would be eligible for Treasury reimbursement for those expenses. Again, that goes up to 30%, right?
We're all going off.
Or
There's
going off, okay. You want to wait a minute?
Amber alert, so.
Okay. So those are some of the major tax credit sections. Again, probably there are a couple there that may be Clearwater Gas, and Rosemary told me we'd be talking to Clearwater Gas leadership about to see if any of their operations would be something worth pursuing for these tax credits. But the one section I think that you will probably be most interested in are the direct grants that are available to state and local governments. And so the first one on here is a greenhouse gas reduction program. It's a large program, $7 billion, run by the EPA to make, and state and local governments are eligible. And it's to benefit low-income and disadvantaged communities to move to zero-emission technology. So I know you all are working a lot of infrastructure within the city. We're going to talk about some funding that's available to affordable housing projects. I know you are looking at those. There may be some partnerships to be had there to get credit here. But this first one is a program to provide financial and technical assistance on projects to reduce greenhouse gases within communities. So again, there may be some things that you can do. There may be some things that Clearwater Gas can do on the GHG reduction programs, and this is a direct funded program that you would apply to EPA for. Again, a lot of these programs, it's going to be several months before they roll out the notice of funding opportunities, but I just throw them out there for now, and we'll stay in touch with you about them. The second one I'm not sure impacts you. I don't know about the methane footprint here in Clearwater. I'm not sure if that impacts Clearwater Gas or not, but the same sort of thing. Instead of greenhouse gas, this is a methane emission reduction program, and it's a $1.5 billion program. And when we talk about these programs, if you recall the infrastructure bill, we talked about it last year, it's a program that was funded for 5 years, so they would be rolling out grant programs for 5 straight years of enhanced funded programs, but there are 5 different funding cycles per year. This is going to be the same thing. These are going to be rolled out, what they expect, over 3 years instead of 5 years. So you would have, if you don't apply in the first year, you still have 2 more bites at the apple in the outgoing years. The next set of programs to talk about, again, this may be some that are of interest to the community. There's a climate pollution reduction grant program, which provides funding to communities like yours to help plan, which I know you have some plans already on the books to reduce emissions and go towards renewable fuels. This is a program, a $5 billion program that's available to communities to help you plan, come up with comprehensive plans for how to reduce emissions and other pollution within the community. So again, planning grants, something would be directly applied through the Environmental Protection Agency, and we'll get back to you with more information about that when that becomes available. There's another program run out of EPA that's set up in this program called the Air Pollution Grant Program. And the purpose of this is, as it says, is to set up monitoring stations within communities to monitor for air pollution. The focus of this program is underserved communities where traditionally they find air pollution is greater and more impactful to the residents of those communities' health and otherwise. And so there are programs set up to provide air monitoring systems within communities if you think you have a problem. Most of these are in non-attainment areas, which I don't think you're a non-attainment area. We used to be a non-attainment area here in Pinellas County, but we're no longer. So much of that's focused on those areas. But there, and again, there's $3 million to deploy air quality sensors. We work with some universities who are looking at doing that on a research basis, and so there may be some partnerships to be had there. And then again, there's another methane monitoring program. So if there are parts of the community that there are air quality concerns, we have a program to address those. The next set of programs I just give you for your general awareness, these are focused on, not on communities, but they're focused on schools. There's a school air pollution reduction program to monitor air quality around schools, particularly in non-attainment areas. There's a low emission electricity program, which is for large electric generating facilities. And then there's a direct Department of Energy loan program to upgrade innovative clean energy programs. These are large programs where you'd be converting from coal to natural gas or from other sources of funding, potentially natural gas to hydrogen. So those are all things I'm not sure that really pertain to you, but I just pass them along. But following along here, there'll be some programs here that are of further interest to you. This top program here, the Temporary Loan Program for Energy Infrastructure, is a loan program. $250 billion is available if you need to transition your energy infrastructure or to upgrade your energy infrastructure to reduce greenhouse gases. So I throw this out there, we'll talk to Clearwater Gas about it. There may be some opportunities there for Clearwater Gas to look at some of their infrastructure and find ways to reduce any emissions from their facilities. The second one is an environmental justice block grant program. Much of the focus in the infrastructure bill and on this bill is in underserved communities. The administration set up a Justice 40 program to look at all types of data and information on communities that are underserved and are heavily impacted by climate change. So this is a $3 billion program run through EPA to carry out programs to try and clean up the air quality around these neighborhoods. You're looking at, again, going back to community-led air monitoring. But I talk about the second one here, investments in workforce development to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. I know you have a substantial workforce that's involved with Clearwater Gas. There may be some opportunities there to work on workforce development. As we convert to electric vehicles, there's a whole requirement to change to train the workforce to deal with electric vehicles and other alternate fuel vehicles, so some opportunities there. And then I look at the last one, mitigating climate and health risks for urban heat islands. Certainly, we're in the state of Florida where it gets very hot, and there are heat islands, and some of these heat islands are in sections of the community that are Justice 40 parts of the community, very little shade, direct heat, and it has an impact on some of those neighborhoods and low-income housing. So there may be a program there ultimately for you all to take a look at there too. The next one is there are a couple of transportation programs that are funded in this bill. These are separate and above from the infrastructure bill that was passed last year. One of these is directed through the Federal Highway Administration. And I call attention to the second bullet here because it may pertain to some of your neighborhoods, to increase neighborhood access and transportation equity. The purpose of this is, Commissioner Albritton, I know is on the PSTA board, is we have transit systems here, but is to try and get people to those transit systems, people that don't have cars and access to transportation, to try and figure out ways to make sure that they can get to their jobs, can get to school, can get to their medical appointments, and to try and increase those transportation opportunities within those neighborhoods. And so there are opportunities in other parts of the community that probably could use that help and could use better access to some of the PSTA routes that are coming. So again, something to look at. It's a rather large program at almost $2 billion. The last one on this page is another Federal Highway Administration program that provides technical capacity. These are for large projects, supersized projects, to provide the technical support to try and get those projects off the ground faster. The next slide, again, is one, the first one is not something that's probably of interest to the community, which is low development of low carbon transportation materials. These are highway materials that emit less heat. They absorb the heat and don't release the heat in the air and try and keep the community cool. But the second bullet here is something that's probably worth looking at for the community, which is replacing heavy-duty vehicles, Class 6, Class 7 heavy-duty vehicles that I'm sure the city has a large fleet of these, to replace them with energy-efficient and zero-emission vehicles. And so this is not a tax credit. This is actually a directly funded program to communities. $600 million is available to all applicants, and $400 million is set aside for communities that are in non-attainment areas. So there is a $600 million pot of funding that might be available as you look to transition your fleet to replace vehicles and go to low emission or no emission equipment. The next slide is one that port pollution, mentioned that earlier, that doesn't impact you. And there's a second program down there for environmental review adoption funding. This is for Federal Highway Administration projects of a larger scope to try and do some early environmental reviews of those projects so they're not so costly for communities. Finally, I call attention to a couple slides here where there are a series of energy efficiency programs that were created by this bill. And these will be, the first project is called the High Efficiency Electric Home Rebate Program. This is actually a program kind of like the infrastructure bill. Funds will actually go state by state based on a formula. So your state energy office will receive funds for this rebate program, and then they'll work with local providers to provide rebates to homeowners who are low income or moderate income homeowners who are looking to replace energy equipment within their home, whether it's hot water heaters, air conditioners, furnaces, those type of things. And so there would be a rebate available, and the state would issue the rebates. Now, what they tell you, and again, it's all, the devil will be in the details on how they implement this, local government entities are actually eligible to be recipients of the rebates, but you're not actually eligible to be the applicant for the rebates. So you could work with the state, you could work with a provider if you're building a low-income housing development or an affordable housing development, and they're going to be installing energy-efficient equipment. You could partner with them to actually, if you pay for part of that process, you could actually get the rebates yourself instead of the rebates going to the homeowner. So it gets a bit of a murky program, one yet to be determined on how it's going to work, but it does cover the whole gamut of energy equipment that goes into homes, including ranges, washers and dryers, and installation of insulation, air sealing, ventilation materials, and electric wiring, everything that you would want to make your new construction either more energy efficient or to upgrade existing infrastructure and make it more energy efficient. So something, again, I know I'm throwing a lot at you, I just wanted to give you the full gamut. Finally, under the energy efficiency side, for your planning department, there's actually $1 billion in here, the first bullet, for the Department of Energy to award grants to state and local governments to adopt and implement the latest energy or zero energy building codes for residential and commercial buildings. So this is an opportunity for your code enforcement teams to develop new guidelines to require or suggest energy efficiency in new buildings, new construction, and in renovation. So opportunity there, again, we'll provide this information as the program is developed and we have more information on it. Then there is a funding for energy and water efficiency in affordable housing. This is a $1 billion program through the Department of Housing and Urban Development to help with the development of, as we build more affordable housing, to make sure that within that affordable housing, they're incorporating energy efficient appliances and equipment, try and reduce energy and water use within those developments. And then finally, there's a program here, which I think Rosemary and I have talked about, a project here at Cooper's Point to the east side of the city within Tampa Bay. This is a program, the only program in the bill that's funded by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, to provide grants to eligible state and local governments, which are you, for conservation and restoration of coastal and marine habitats and resources. So, you're surrounded by water here, so there's great opportunities to maybe potentially work with NOAA to try and find a project where you could, maybe like Cooper's Point, where the bay is flushing and it has an impact on marine life and seagrass and other things, where you could do that. It's a $2.6 billion program, a lot of funding available there, and we're happy to work with you on that. And finally on that page, there's a transmission facility siting program, which is one of those programs to move large transmission facilities to a better location where we operate more efficiently. That probably does not help you. And then finally, there's a section called Resiliency, Public Lands, and Conservation. The first program is for forests, which obviously don't have any forests in Clearwater, but the second one is the Urban Community and Forestry Program. I know you're very proud of the trees that we have here and the shade that they provide. There's a $2.2 billion program through the Department of Agriculture for its Urban and Community Forestry Program, which you are eligible for. So as you're looking for tree planting and other related activities, that would be a grant opportunity to be eligible. And again, it would be run out over 3 funding cycles over the next 3 years. So, Mayor and council members, I know I threw a lot at you in a short amount of time. A lot of details yet to be put on these programs, but it does give you and your staff, I think, some ideas on maybe a couple of the programs that might be worth taking a look at over the next couple of years.
How long do you think it is going to be until all the guidelines are in?
Probably 6 to 9 months.
Okay.
6 to 9 months. So I would say sometime probably next spring, summer. And they'll probably roll out different, if the infrastructure bill was any guidance, some of the programs rolled out quicker. Now, they had the benefit in the infrastructure bill. A lot of the programs that were funded in that bill were kind of supersized funding of existing programs. So they had existing grant programs, and they just added more money to them. So they were able to roll those out pretty fast. They were probably 3 or 4 months behind on the newer programs they were trying to roll out. So to be perfectly frank, they're having real trouble in the federal government recruiting people to help administer these programs and to do all the paperwork that's required to take in the applications and process the applications and review all the applications. So, that part of the holdup, frankly, is just waiting to get more people on board to do the work.
So how often are the funds never even expended?
We'll find out. This is, like I say, these are 30 new programs, so I think they did a pretty good job on the infrastructure bill at getting their funds out the door. So, the RAISE grant, you're familiar with that, some of the other PSTA programs that they've received funding for. Those all rolled out pretty quickly, and I think the problem, Mayor, has been, we work with the Port of Tampa. They received a federal grant in July of 2020 to expand one of their port offloading sites, and they still haven't received the funding yet. So they've been going through the application process and the review process and all that. So they're well over 2 years into that, still haven't received the funding. So the funding was awarded, but the project hasn't been started, and the project cost has now gone up 40%. So it's there is that problem too. But I think on the infrastructure side, they have not really had the problem of not expending the funds. Now, some of these programs are larger chunks of money of new programs. Could potentially be that problem.
Councilmember Albritton.
So any of these programs, I know you mentioned some of them where you had the carbon, go into vehicles that don't create carbon. But there's already carbon credit programs that California has, and we've been looking into that for PSTA specifically. Is that something the federal government may jump on board with?
They might. And there's a carbon reduction credit, yes, correct. And what they focus on in this bill is actually trying to convert your fleets to go to zero emission is what they're trying to do. And going back to the mayor's point on that, I think part of the problem is some of the technology may not be there for some of the zero emission heavy equipment, dump trucks, garbage trucks. The bigger pieces of equipment are still, some of them are still being developed. How do you manage a garbage truck on a battery system, and how do you get enough power to generate some of those things, and bulldozers and other things? Or it's hard to run them. The Army's even looking at electric Army tanks, and how are they going to generate those? Where are you going to refuel? Where are you going to power them back up? So I think there are some things that may be difficult to spend all this money on, but to your point, they are looking at carbon reduction incentives, yes. But I don't know. I'll have to talk to Brad. I don't know what PST.
Well, specifically, we're converting to all electric buses out of diesel, and that's a big jump, and if we could get carbon credit help on that, that would be a great one. We're kind of looking into it. Nobody seems to know about it here on this coast, so I was thinking maybe the federal government might have jumped in on that and make it a little more.
You're talking about credits where you could pass your credit on to somebody, another organization that could use the credit. Is that kind of like an offset? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'll look into that. I don't know. I'll talk to Brad some more.
Yeah. Okay.
Other questions? Vice Mayor?
Thank you for that presentation.
Sure.
It was pretty fascinating. There's a whole lot to think about and work through, but I appreciate you going through a whole bunch. Are most of those grants, so one of them, says you've got $2.6 billion set aside for fiscal year 2022. Does that mean it's going to be competitive, like first come, first serve? How are those things going to be applied for and distributed? Do you know yet?
So what will happen is what they're doing is trying to create the scope of the program internally within the agency. Then once they create the scope of the program, they go back and they consult with Congress. The committees within Congress have jurisdiction of the program to make sure that they're attempting to implement the program the way it was intended. As I said, there was a lot of guidance provided on these. You get statutory language is pretty hard to read. It doesn't provide a lot of guidance like a typical bill would have a report that explains the provisions. This doesn't have that. So they're going to have to go back to the committee, make sure they're interpreting the legislation correctly. And then what they would do is put out a notice of funding opportunity. And then at that point, you would have, depending on usually 45 to 60 days, sometimes longer, to respond with a proposal. And when we say this money is available starting in 2022, the money technically is available now because it was direct funding that goes to these programs, but it'll be spread out over 3 years. And so typically what they'll do is have 3 funding cycles, 1 per year. And if you don't apply the first year, there's still 2 more cycles to go. If you do apply the first year, and we encourage our clients to look at that, if you do apply the first year and don't get it, they can always go back and get a review from the agency, whether it's EPA or whoever, and they'll give you some, kind of like your term paper, they'll give you a little coaching to try and approve it for the next time around. And we've had good success. We did that with the RAISE grant for PSTA 3 times, got the coaching, and finally got over the top the last time. So, I encourage people to throw applications in even if they're not quite ready, and they can get reviewed, and then there's not as much work to do the second time as you're revising them.
Okay. And, we have Green Print 2.0 that has some goals of solar on 1,000 low and moderate income homes. And one of these programs incentivizes that as
Correct.
well.
Yes.
So that'll help.
And some of those would be grants, and then you would also be available, potentially eligible for the tax credits to come back with that too. So there are two different ways I think you could have addressed the affordable housing part.
Right, and then I think there was one where you got, there are incentives for, like clean energy workforce training. And so if we have our North Greenwood CRA with the goal of reducing poverty and workforce
Right.
training, if we set up something where we were training people to be solar installers or something like that, that might fit in?
Correct.
Okay, great. And then I'm really interested in how we can leverage this IRA to save the city money. You know, what can we do to really save taxpayers money and also reduce our carbon footprint in the city? So it'll be interesting to see what programs we can take advantage of.
Well, it may just come down to helping promote within the city some of these programs that are available we talked about the rebate program that could be coming from the state energy office. You may be encouraging your residents to apply for that, or through the city, some of the city offices that work with them to apply for that. And there's also, we talked about the program to try and update your building codes to address using more energy efficient equipment within these new builds and renovations. And so trying to promote that within the communities, I think, could be potentially helpful. And going back on your workforce question, I know PSTA is also, they're looking at trying to convert their workforce from those that are working on diesel buses and other buses to the electric buses, a whole new training. And so there's a lot of work required there and workforce development required there. So same thing, I'm sure, within your fleet of how do you train people that work on your vehicles to transition to electric or other vehicles. So there's funding available for that too.
I would hope that, I would hope that we would have like 4 categories of IRA. What are the programs that we could take advantage of for the city, for residents, for nonprofits, and for businesses? Because there are churches and nonprofit organizations that run, little minivans and things like that, and will they be incentivized to get an electric vehicle as well?
They will, and when I mentioned at the beginning the idea of the direct pay in lieu of a tax credit, since nonprofits, churches, and other organizations that are nonprofits, homeless shelters, and other things, they don't pay federal taxes, so the tax credit doesn't help them. Nonprofits are eligible for the direct pay, so Treasury's going to have to figure out how to handle that too, how you work with nonprofits on that. But they would be eligible if they want to convert some of their housing or their vehicle fleet or whatever. They would be eligible for the credit.
And one last thing, I could talk about this for hours, but because it's a federal program, right, and so it's a national program, this IRA, and our staff is taxed, and I'm sure a lot of other municipalities have staffs that are taxed, but once somebody comes up with a website with easy one-pagers and handouts and ways to distribute this information, we can modify it for our city, but because we're all looking at the same information, right?
Right.
And so I think it's important, that we play a role in educating our residents about all parts of that IRA that they can take advantage of, and business owners and nonprofits in our community.
Yeah, and the agencies have been pretty, you asked me how they're going to implement these programs. The agencies have been pretty good on the infrastructure bill about rolling out webinars. We've been sharing those with Rosemary to share with your staff, explaining more detail than I've provided you here. How do you apply? How's the program going to work? All this sort of thing. So these webinars are really helpful. And I think one of the things that Rosemary and I talked about a couple of times is throwing this information out and trying to let your staff take a look at it, Mr. Manager, and figure out which might be some good matches. You can't go after everything. Yeah. They all don't apply to you, but pick the ripest fruit and go after that.
Thank you.
And we're happy, by the way, to set up. The agencies are really good about taking phone calls. If you have a project you're particularly interested in, they're happy to hear from you and explain what you're trying to do. And they look for innovation. If it's an innovative project, they like to hear about it. They like to be helpful to you. And it's not a win or lose situation with these funds, to the mayor's point. They want to get the funding out the door and and spend it on good projects. So they want to make sure you're successful. So they're very helpful about those kinds of things.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate this extensive report. You do a great job on our behalf.
Happy to answer any questions if they come up.
They will. There was a lot to unpack in that report.
Thank you.
I would ask if there are any amendments to the minutes of the October 6, 2022 meeting. Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Move to approve the minutes?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. This time, I want to open it up to citizens to be heard. If there are any citizens that would like to speak to items that are not on the agenda, we do ask you to fill out a comment card, and we respectfully ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes.
If I go first, I got an early flight in the morning. I'm not the man I used to be. Mr. Mayor, how you doing? That was a great briefing you gave on the complex. You made a believer out of me. You made a believer out of me. It's good stuff. You did a really good job.
Thank you.
I don't think I did a very good job when I started talking about Deanne Criswell, the FEMA administrator, because as we all know, I kind of get up here and rattle off a whole lot of things. I'll try to keep it focused, but before I went up to Washington, I didn't even know who she was. And the primary reason why I went up there was a conference and breakfast with Senator Blunt on Homeland Security, mainly Lieutenant General Evans, who is the NORTHCOM commander. God forbid that you have to use Title 10 active duty in Florida as opposed to Title 32 for National Guard for like hurricane. My center of gravity is the military, so, and Senator Blunt is retiring, so he had a breakfast, but I think it's very important. He had the breakfast at the Russell Senate office building. Originally it was going to be at the convention center, and if you can't trust the combatant commander for North America and the United States to enter the building, I don't know who you can trust. They even let somebody like me in there. But at that briefing and breakfast, we had general sergeant majors, some old worn out retirees like myself, lower enlisted, and most importantly, ROTC cadets, our future. In the afternoon, we had a symposium, and we had Homeland Security, we had Assistant Secretary of Defense from the Pentagon on Homeland Defense, and of course, Lieutenant General Evans, and somehow my center of gravity started shifting towards the FEMA administrator. And she started out, if you check out her dossier on the internet, it is really impressive. This is not Katrina, and it's not Brownie, you're doing a fine job. She earned her spurs, and afterwards, I want to talk to you about Florida and Ian. And she said, who are you and what are you? I said, I'm just an old retiree, and I just come here because this things interest me. And she basically, well, she can't really task a retiree. She asked, she said, when you go back to your local government, I would like to know them and have their cell phone numbers. And she's very serious about this. She started in local government. She started as an E1 in the Air Force. She wants to get to know people, especially in this area, because if it goes into Tampa Bay, it knocks out the port of Tampa, knocks out your fuel. From there, you have, and we get attacked every day through cyber warfare. They knock out a pipeline. You've got all kinds of entities coming together, but it's kind of nice if you at least have some kind of rapport beforehand. Dynamic lady. So,
Love to talk to her, Mr. Bill.
Pardon me?
Love to talk to her.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Safe travels.
Okay. I'm not flying the plane.
Anyone else for citizens to be heard?
Good evening, Mayor Hibbert, council members, Mr. Jennings. My name is Mark Birnbaum. Many of you have seen me before. I'm a Clearwater resident. This is my second time speaking about Nursery Road. Nursery Road.
They'll turn it on for you, Mr. Birnbaum.
Just keep going.
Which way?
Just as you see it.
That's north. We're talking about Nursery Road at 2465. During the April 2nd traffic study was created by Gina Payton, the Director of Planning and Development, by using a Mead and Hunt, a consulting firm, at a cost of $14,000. And the study was completed in June. In reading the 158 pages, I discovered that the study omitted important and critical traffic data that reflected lower traffic levels and counts. This was found on page 20 and 21 and 22 of the study. itself has percentages, not numbers. So it makes it kind of hard. So you have to multiply the percentages times the 816 students, and which was not done in the study. And combine that with the existing traffic exhibits of the current traffic, which would, if it was combined, result in a much higher traffic count and show a higher backlog of traffic on Nursery Road, going especially west towards Belcher Road, or traffic going east on Nursery Road to U.S. Frontage Road, both receiving an F rating in the traffic study. Mead and Hunt stated that the 25% of the students, right here, of the 800 students, 816 to be exact, is planned to travel north on US 19, but not as the map shows on this particular page, because you can't go north and make a left turn on Nursery Road anymore. We got that closed up. So what happened? Well, now we have to turn left on Bel Air Road, adding even more traffic to Bel Air, which everyone knows has a traffic results last few weeks. To get to Nursery, the driver must make a sharp, very sharp right turn at South Haven Drive and go over four speed bumps, reducing their speed to 15 miles per hour before reaching Nursery Road. South Haven Drive was not mentioned in the traffic study. Why not? The call was left with the author of the report to explain, but he failed to do so. By showing the lower traffic result, the reports become obvious and reflects the favorable low level of traffic to the school developer and the school itself. However, Kara Kivitz, Director of Traffic, stated in an email to me that the city will not discuss professional technical concerns of the report and traffic flow theories. Her refusal to utilize the missing data I supplied becomes obvious. Her reply clearly was perceived as a put-down and was rude to the person providing the data that reflects the higher traffic count.
Thank you,
Nursery
Mr.
Road
Beerbaum.
project needs further examinations
Thank you, sir.
by the committee. Thank you.
Anyone else for citizens to be heard?
Hello, Council. My name is James Jackson. I'm a resident of Clearwater. I live a few blocks from the proposed charter school on Nursery Road. I'm also an attorney, and don't hold it against me. I used to be an attorney for the Church of Scientology. I have here in my hand a petition signed by over half of the residents within 200 feet of your proposed charter school. And the reason we had to go to the effort of getting this petition signed by all these residents, we have their signatures, email addresses, telephone numbers, and so on this petition, is that the plat notice, the regulations governing plat notices mandate that plat notices are supposed to be sent to residents within 200 feet of the proposed plat. And as you probably recall, the first time you sent out the plat notice, none of these people got it.
Correct.
The second plat notice, they did get, and you can have a copy of this petition if you like. Over half of these people have signed this petition opposing your proposed charter school. And one reason we had to get this petition executed is that you have not allowed any of these residents to appear before the council on actually agended item in a city council meeting. The first council meeting, I believe, anyway, the second plat notice has never appeared on the city council agenda for approval for a second vote. And when Gina Clayton, by the way, Gina Clayton, when she submitted the request for the second plat notice that you sent out, she falsified the request and said something to the effect that it's a proposed place of worship and expansion of an existing school. And as you probably know, there never was a school on this property. So we have, I don't do municipal law, but you got some due process problems here. And we've talked to some law firms that specialize in this area, and there's an issue here. I mean, but the main overriding issue, of course, is that it's dangerous. That road is very narrow. The shoulders are very difficult, and it's just not the place to put a school. That's the overarching problem you got. But besides that, you have half of your residents, which are voters, have signed this thing, and they're opposed to it. Half of the residents within 200 feet of the proposed school. And you guys need to consider that. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson, do you have a copy of that you could leave the clerk?
Mark, is that okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else for citizens to be heard?
They already have my paper.
Okay. If you could state your name for the record.
My name is Phil Tennyson. I've been living here for over 25 years. And I've noticed traffic has just gotten more and more in Clearwater, a growing city, which is good. Nursery is just too small a road for this kind of traffic. I have to drive by Plum Elementary on Lakeview, and if I'm unfortunate enough to get there at the wrong time, I'm just stuck for 15 minutes or more. And you have to have the kids be safe. It's all great. Gotta have the traffic slowed way down, and traffic guards stopping it all the time. But nursery, it's already trouble. It's a very small street. So I would be opposed to it. I think there's probably a better place. I don't know what it would be, but that's my opinion.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Mr. Haluva, and I think it's time we had a little more reminder about Violent Lou Hatcher. This is a still photo of him doing a video of cop car karaoke that he had posted online. This is one of his semi-nude postings with comments. One of them was, "Hey, for the record, ladies." This is another one he did. Semi-nude posting where he's pointing his Clearwater Police Service weapon. And then most recently, here he is at the recent Walter Campbell Park football camp. This is a guy who loves attention, so that's why I'm giving him some more this evening. He's a social media clown, so why not give him a little more attention? It's really, in my opinion, a bad idea to have a police officer representing the city at a special event like this football camp, who has a history, a long history of improper contacts with the public as a police officer, and many other complaints. And we've got, all the Clearwater police leaders, namely the irritable Eric Gandy, former, assistant police chief. He defended this guy. Michael Wallach defends this guy. Slaughter defended him to the point of not even referring to him by name in a reply to a complaint. All three of them are standing back here doing nothing. So I can only hope that since, Mr. Slaughter has his 30 years in, that he will take a bow and butt out.
Anyone else for citizens to be heard?
I appeared here also, I'm Michael Dalton. I appeared here 7 months ago.
Could you just state your name for the record, please?
I just did that.
I didn't hear it.
My name is Michael Dalton.
Thank you.
And so after being here 6 or 7 months ago, I was under the impression I was going to get some help out of the council. That never happened. So you council members are elected by us taxpayers, and you're supposed to be doing the business of the city for us. But many of the people who are on the council apparently, and certainly a lot of city employees, have a different idea. They seem to think that they're in control. But we as taxpayers and citizens are supposed to be. If you believe in a Republican form of government, we're supposed to be in control. And I'm not seeing that in the city of Clearwater. They talk about open government and so forth. And I don't think that some of the things that Mark Birnbaum and the crew spoke about the Nursery Road project. And what I'm here to tell you is you don't get both sides because you hear what the staff wishes you to hear. We've been denied the rights to participate in this project. It's been over a year. In January, you let the school people speak before the commission and positively to say, we want the school. No one has ever spoken against the school at an official hearing because you haven't allowed it. And they talked about the lack of plat notices. The second plat notice that was sent out was concealed. It was kept in the DRC. They went through a total illegal operation. And so that has not appeared before this council. I'd like to know why. We have a very large project going in that's going to affect not just the people who you heard sign the petition, but it's going to affect everybody in Morningside along Nursery Road, hundreds and thousands of people who use Nursery Road to travel between the city and Highway 19. Nursery Road is only 10 feet wide per lane. It cannot handle that traffic. So the paperwork that is with the DRC was also shared with the city attorney's office. And the city attorney and the attorney for the school got together in a conference, and they decided, usurping the ability of the council, they decided that there should not be a replatting because it would be too time-consuming and it might cost the school money. That's wrong.
Thank you, Mr.
I think
Dalton.
you need to have more interest in the appeals of people and listen to your citizens who know what's going on in the ground. Thank you.
Anyone else for citizens to be heard?
Mayor, Council, my name is Jim Gifford. I've been here before a few times, but not often. It's real quick, nice to see you, Kathleen. I'd like to just clear up a matter that's left over from last month where there was discussion about Decade Properties, their application, their process. At that meeting, the city, which I believe was Gina Clayton, had claimed that no TDRs were transferred from Chart House 850 Bayway Boulevard to the Edge Hotel, and that statement was not true. So our evidence shows that Decade did transfer rooms from 850 Bayway to the Edge Hotel. Included in their application for the Edge Hotel and dated June 28, 2013, is an email to Michael Dell from Clearwater's lawyer. It references the development order FLD 2004-04025/TDR 2004-09011 and states, quote, "In my opinion, it would be a reasonable legal position to take that the new construction for overnight accommodations may proceed to permitting based upon the continued validity of the development order/orders approving the original units." If you're not sure with it, everybody know what a TDR is?
Transfer of density rights,
Correct.
for those at home that don't know.
Just want to make sure. Okay. As well, the same application, FLD 20013-11038, referencing TDR 2004-09011, states TDRs run with the land irrespective of the status of any site plan approvals. Clearwater's own planning department has recorded those rooms being transferred. I do have a chart. I'm not sure if it goes straight up yet.
That's correct.
There you go. Okay. So the chart shows case number, TDR 2004-09011, sending site 850 Bayway Boulevard, which would be Chart House, receiving site 521 South Gulfview, which is the edge. Type of intensity to use sent, dwelling units, available 19 sent 2, remaining 17. Dwelling equivalent units, I'll leave that part out, you can read that. This is found in both Florida 20013-11038 and CDB meeting January 21, 2014.
Thank you, Mr. Gifford.
I have 2 other documents, I'll just hand them to you.
If you'll give them to the clerk,
Very well.
we'll get them.
So,
Thank you, sir.
if that clears up the record. My slide rule here in case we have to make some calculations.
Slide.
We're gonna do a little tag team here.
That gets you 2 pages.
If you give them to us, we'll pass them.
Okay. There's 2 pages each.
Yep.
Yeah, she's gonna set it up.
Christine Chris Michaelak, 855 Bayway Boulevard, Clearwater Point. Good evening, Mayor Hibbard, council members, City Manager Jennings, city staff. To begin, I appreciate the opportunity to come before you today to share why Decade Properties, Inc. should not be granted a building permit for the Chart House on Clearwater Point. I recognize that the decisions you have made in the last several months, most recently the importance of a vote yes for the Bluff project, that my coming here may seem insignificant. Believe me, for the 465 families that live on Clearwater Point, this has been top of mind for 4 years. You may recall a second council hearing, vote were rooms filled to capacity, a vote 3 yes and 2 no granted Decade 27 units from the reserve, followed by the CDB hearing, which voted in favor of Decade. The critical piece of that CDB hearing was a promise made, documented for posterity, by Chair Mary Lau and Senior Planner Mark Perry, that the issues Clearwater Point brought forward would be reconciled, dealt with at the Decade permit application. We are holding you responsible and want you to follow up on that promise made. Let's talk about today. Decade's Property, Inc. has recently appointed a new architect and they have submitted a building permit. We have reviewed the application, the architectural drawings, and have sent many of you a copy, 2 emails with detailed facts stating that Decade Properties application does not comply with mandatory obligations. Here's the bottom line. Decade details and facts have not been approved by the City Council or the Community Development Council. Both of the City Council and Community Development Boards
were provided with original plans by the first architect, Audie Smith. These were the ones that were approved. You have before you an example of what the new architect has presented on behalf of Decade. Decade's building application shows you their non-color drawings, the following things. Page A8, floor 6, consists of 12 suites, not rooms, plus 8 adjacent separate rentable rooms. You'll see them circled, 20 doorways, so are circled. That is not what was approved by the City Council, nor was it approved by the Community Development Board. Decade's application, again, was not approved by the City Council and the Community Development Board. We request that you challenge the defects in Decade's permit application and have them meet burden of proof. We ask you to reject this application and ask for a resubmission.
You gonna speak, Rudy?
I have to say something. Can't let my wife have the last word.
Well, no, I didn't know if the baton was being passed or not.
It is.
Okay.
Mayor Hibbert, council members, Mr. Jennings, city staff. My name is Rudy Michaelek. I live at 855 Bayway Boulevard, number 707, Clearwater Point, Clearwater Beach. I'm speaking with regards to the building permit, interestingly, of 850 Bayway Boulevard, the chart house. About the following things on the permit application. The form states only complete permit application or submittals will be accepted. However, this one was accepted, and there were numerous documents missing as noted by the staff checklist, including permit fees. Therefore, the application should be kicked back to the application and not even be considered as submitted until it is in fact complete. We've provided emails with the specifics of that. The second thing I want to mention is we learned from Mayor Hibbert when we attended his bluff presentation that there's a thing called concurrency agreement. And when we look at the plan with regards to this project in Clearwater Point, we don't see any concurrency agreement. Number 3, the setback at the seawall. The CDB okayed the plan with a 5-foot setback since the city codes are silent on this requirement. It was noted by the CDB that this would be handled at permitting. Pinellas County and the Florida Building Code 3109.6.2.2.2, I hope I don't have too many .2s in there, states that no construction shall be permitted within 18 feet of existing or new seawalls, unless designated by a professional. We find nothing in the records, in the city records, that Decade has provided anything with regards to re-engineering of the seawall, therefore they're not compliant. Note, East Shore Drive, Marriott Courtyard, and the recently approved East Shore Drive new development both meet the Florida Building Code. They have the 18-foot setback. Why should Decade be different? Okay, and finally, my last point is Beach by Design, lovely document, Mayor, by the way, refers to density pool and hotel density reserve as hotel rooms, not suites. The approval by the City Council of 27 rooms was to be in addition to the 33 at the current chart house, was for a total of 60. As stated earlier, the suite setup actually provides 120 bedrooms, and there are at least 78 with entrances from the hallway that could be used as rental rooms or suites. A suite is a set of rooms. Hence, this is not what the City Council approved for a project of 60 rooms. This project should be rejected in all its identity, and the developer's project should be thrown out, and the whole project should be referred back to the City Council for review of how the 27 rooms are being used. Ta-da.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for citizens to be heard? All right, thank you all. We do have Tara Kivett here for Mr. Jennings. on some of the questions having to do with the charter school. I do want to correct, this is not the city's charter school. We don't do schools at all. I just want to make that clear for the public. Has the plan been looked at by the city and the county? Is that?
Yes, good evening, Tara Kivett, City Engineer. The plans along with the traffic impact study and the plans that the developer just submitted, the Nursery Road improvement plans that will show all the mitigation measures that were identified in the traffic impact study. Just, I think this week, last couple days, they were submitted to the county. We're in communication with the county on those plans because Nursery Road is county right-of-way, so ultimately they have to approve the work in the right-of-way. But from just a quick look at them, they appear to be meeting our expectations of what we were expecting on the mitigation measures.
Questions for Ms. Kivett? Anyone? Mr. Kohler, the question of the due process, and I don't know if you've had any involvement in this.
I have not. I'll have to confer with Mr. Reynolds.
Okay. Councilmember Bunker?
When we had the meeting where all the people from the school were here speaking, was that out of balance because the neighborhood didn't get that initial notice? And perhaps the school knew that it was coming up, or the residents didn't?
Ms. Call, do you recall the process?
I believe it was noticed, and it was advertised, so it would have been open to anyone, not just those who were supporting the school. And I'll have to double check, but I thought there were individuals who were opposing the project the same night as well. So it was, people knew of it, not just the school. So
We had a first and second reading on it. The original notice was incorrect.
Correct.
Because it was noticed from the center of the property rather than the corners. That was re-noticed again correctly.
But it was sent to both sides, and there were, if I recall correctly, there were people who supported and opposed the project at the meeting. So it wasn't that we did not allow individuals to speak.
That's the way I recall it. I think we had both sides here.
I didn't mean to suggest that we didn't allow it.
Yeah.
I just was concerned if they didn't get a fair enough warning. But if we noticed it.
It was sent to all impacted residents as well as advertised as well. So it was noticed.
Okay.
Mr. Kohler, when Mr. Margolis gets back, if you could pass along the fact that there's question about due process, and if we could have an opinion from him on that, I would appreciate it. I would assume that Mr. Birnbaum is kind of still the contact person. Is that all right?
That is correct, thank you.
Okay.
I would like to have a meeting.
Well, we did have a meeting. Mr. Jennings and I did go out to the neighborhood at Morningside and have a meeting with all of the citizens. I think that should be pointed out as well. Certainly, Mr. Jennings.
Certainly, let me talk with staff, but we do believe in meeting whenever there's a request. So let me.
I've asked for a request and I've been denied.
But let me speak with staff, and I'll personally get back to you.
Thank you very much. The comment that you made on January the 20th.
Sir, you have to come up to the mic. I normally do not do this because you've already had a single bite of the apple and we don't.
Thank you for allowing me to come back again.
Yes.
The issue on January the 20th, you made a statement at the vote that you were surprised that no one showed up to vote against the motion because nobody ever got informed on the first plat notice. Now we got the second plat notice. We went through the motion, but it never came up in the work order on Monday, or did it come up for you to vote a second time? How can you vote on the same plat when the first one was illegally done and still invalid, being used?
Replatting takes 2 votes. It takes a first and a second reading.
On December the 27th was the issuing of the plat notice work order, and on January the 20th, a month later, right, almost a month later, the vote occurred with no publicity at any time. I asked in mid-November of that year to Melissa Hawk Baker to keep me duly informed when I was aware of this situation with Nursery Road. I was not duly informed by anybody on the city staff until I discovered in March that there was a problem. And that's when we appeared, and Mr. Jennings and you stopped the project because the permits were not valid and the traffic study was not valid.
And we redid the traffic study.
And now today I presented further evidence that the traffic study is invalid. It's missing data. It's so obvious that a blind person can see it.
Okay, Mr. Beerbaum.
Thank you very much.
We'll get back to you.
Okay, I'll wait to hear from you. Thank you very much for your help.
What, Mr. Dalton? I shouldn't be doing this. I'm creating a terrible precedent, so.
It has to do with the legality that you mentioned about the notification. The code also specifies that the persons who are doing this division of the plat are to put up a 3-foot sign, not more than 6 feet high, on the property prior to coming to the council. I walk my dog past that area every single day, sometimes twice. Never did I see a sign. So they have not done the first step. They have not completed the first step for the notification process.
All right, Mr. Dalton. We'll get back to y'all.
I have a request into Kevin Biaria. He hasn't answered yet.
Okay. I would ask if there are any items to be removed from the consent agenda, either by citizens or by the council, items 7.1 through 7.8.
Mayor?
Yes,
I have
ma'am.
a request from a citizen to pull item 7.5.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve 7.1 through 4 and 7.6 through 7.8?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 7.5.
Approve supplemental 2 work order to Mead and Hunt, Inc. of Tampa, Florida for on-call traffic engineering technical support services in the amount of $195,000, increasing the work order from $300,000 to $495,000. Pursuant to request for qualifications 26-19 Engineer of Record Consulting Services, and authorize appropriate officials to execute same.
Thank you. Good evening, Tara Kivett, City Engineer. This supplemental work order will provide operational staff with daily assistance on permit reviews and multimodal impact fees to meet traffic engineering workload demands. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Kivett? Anyone from the public to speak to this item? Come on. Tara.
Again, my name is Mark Birnbaum, in case you don't know. This past Monday, during the council work session on Monday, Tara Kivitz, the director of traffic, responded when asked a question and said, "Nursery," before the committee. This got my immediate attention. Why would the current staff, why the current staff cannot provide technical traffic expertise by asking Mead and Hunt, an outside consulting firm, to step in and provide consulting service at a higher cost to the city than using the city staff of engineers that they do have. Shouldn't the director of traffic just trust the staff to perform engineering service for the city as in the past years? Attention to detail began when both the plat notices of September the 22nd and March the 21st only described the property with the address of 2465 Nursery Road and not by the name of the organization, with the purpose of adding a charter school with an existing place of worship. Even the name on the cover page of the study is wrong. It reads Discovery Academy of Science and Unity Charter School. What it is Galaxy's Educational Properties LLC, doing business as Discovery Academy of Science, a charter school, and Unity Church. This would properly describe the plat splitting with the dual owners and the shared property on Nursery Road. Why is it that Mead and Hunt can't even get the title correct? This reflects that even Mead and Hunt, the expert consultant, did not understand the task, and the attention to details was lacking and misleading. I suggest that additional funds not be approved for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak to this item? If you'll rotate it, as it's pointed at you, basically, yeah.
That good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is data based on what Mead and Hunt wrote in their report on the traffic study in Nursery Road. So here, we have the local traffic. We're not even doubting their numbers, although they're low. 1,100 cars in a 2-hour period. Here's what the school will add. If you total those, nowhere, by the way, in either of the two studies did anybody ever mention, gee, the school is going to add some more traffic. Look at this. That's almost 2,800 cars in a 2-hour period. These are facts, if you believe their study. And here is what the maximum capacity from their study, based on a chart that is based on a 35-mile-an-hour constant speed limit. So, this number is a bunch of bull. Why? Because they're going to reduce the speed limit to half. So if they were capable of 2,400 cars per hour, it's going to be reduced to 1,200 because of the speed limit. They're never going to carry anywhere near that number of cars. The road is not going to handle it with the school there. Besides which, they're going to cross kids at that spot. They're going to have flashing lights. They're going to have a crossing guard. It's not going to be 15 miles an hour. It's not going to be 35. It isn't going to provide 2,400 cars per hour. This is a disaster waiting to happen. And I think that you people are going to be responsible for it. We already saw what happened on Bel Air Road. Tragedy. This is more tragedy because you're increasing the road capacity beyond what it is capable of. Thank you.
Anyone else to speak? Any questions for staff? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve item 7.5.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. 8.1.
Approve the third substantial amendment to the City of Clearwater's 2019-2020 Annual Action Plan to reallocate existing funding provided by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development to address needs resulting from the COVID-19 emergency.
Thank you, Chuck Lane, Economic Development and Housing Department. This item is to amend the city's plan for our use of CDBG CV funds. HUD granted, in 2020, HUD granted a special allocation of community development block grant funds to help local governments prepare for, prevent, and respond to the pandemic. The city received two tranches totaling $1,351,560. So as discussed at Monday's work session, we're not eliminating any programs from the plan. We're simply reducing an underperforming activity and adding 4 public facility improvement projects. We have to spend 80% of the funds by June, and I believe this will put us in a good position to do that while remaining in compliance with regulations. I'll take questions.
Any questions for Mr. Lane? Anyone from the public to speak to item 8.1? I have a motion.
Move to approve agenda 8.1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do you have a resolution? You don't have anything on this one. Okay.
Waiting for the next one.
8.2.
Amend Clearwater Code of Ordinances, Section 2.421 to reestablish a cost of living benefit for firefighters and pass ordinance 9634-22 on first reading.
Ordinance number 9634-22, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 3, Employees Pension Plan, to reestablish a cost of living benefit for firefighters, amending Section 2.421, relating to cost of living adjustments for firefighters, providing for inclusion in the code, providing for severability, providing for a repealer, and providing for an effective date.
Kelly Kirkpatrick, Human Resources. I haven't done an ordinance, so I'm sorry.
You're fine.
But this is to implement the cost of living adjustment and the cost of living adjustment.
Any questions for Ms. Kilpatrick? Anyone from the public to speak to item 8.2? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 8.2.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. 8.3.
Approve the request from the owner of real property described as parcel ID 15-29-15-38574-015-0060 Court Street to vacate the 5-foot wide platted utility easement on the south property line of Lot 45.
Ordinance,
Oh, sorry.
Ordinance number 9636-22, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, vacating the 5-foot wide platted utility easement on the south property line of Lot 45 and the west half of Lot 44, along with the abutting 5-foot wide platted utility easement on the north property line of lots 8, 7, 6, 20, and the west half of Lot 21, located in Hibiscus Gardens, Block O, according to the map or plat thereof as recorded in Plat Book 14, pages 55 through 59 of the public records of Pinellas County, Florida, providing an effective date.
Ms. Kivett.
Thank you, Mr. Kohler. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tara Kivett again, City Engineer. The purpose of this easement vacation is to allow for a 14-unit multifamily apartment. There are no city utilities present in the easement. Staff has reviewed and has no objections. Any questions?
Any questions? Anyone from the public to speak to item 8.3? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 8.3.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. 9.1. Mr. Kohler.
Ordinance number 9609-22, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, vacating that certain portion of a 20-foot wide alley right-of-way lying west of lots 20, 19, 18, 17, and 16 of Block B, being described in the plat titled John R. Davey et al. Re-subdivision, located in Plat Book 1, page 87 of the public records of Hillsborough County, Florida, of which Pinellas County, Florida was formerly a part, subject to certain conditions, providing an effective date.
Anyone from the public to speak to item 9.1? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve item 9.1.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. 9.2. Mr. Kohler.
Ordinance number 9619-22, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, vacating the 18-foot wide drainage and utility easement as recorded in Book 926, page 157, official records of Pinellas County, Florida, being further described as the south 18 feet of lots 3, 4, and 5, Rompins and Baskins, corrected map of Causeway Business District, as recorded in Plat Book 57, page 1 of the official records of Pinellas County, Florida, providing an effective date.
Anyone from the public to speak to item 9.2? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 9.2.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. 9.3.
Ordinance number 9633-22, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, vacating the south 5 feet of the 10-foot wide platted utility and drainage easement located on Lot 50, Countryside Tract 5, according to the map or plat thereof, as recorded in Plat Book 78, pages 57 to 56 of the public records of Pinellas County, Florida, less and except the east 5 feet thereof, providing an effective date.
Anyone from the public to speak to item 9.3? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 9.3.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 10.1.
Approve a purchase order to Shade Systems, Inc. of Ocala, Florida for the purchase and installation of athletic shade structures in the amount of $700,376.50 pursuant to Clearwater Code of Ordinances, Section 2.563, paren 1, paren C, piggyback, increase project C2212 athletic field shade structures by $70,000 in donations revenue, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Jim Halios, Director of Parks and Recreation. As we discussed this item on Monday's work session, I wanted to invite two members from our respective Little Leagues. So we have Dave Shefferman of Countryside Little League. He's the president, and Peter McGuff of Clearwater Little League president. They wanted to say a few words regarding this project.
I bet they never thought they'd have to wait an hour and 35 minutes.
I told them, I said it was going to be quick, and I just...
This falls under the category of no good deed goes
And
unpunished.
this is
So,
Peter McGuff from Clearwater Little League is the president.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm excited for this project to finally happen as I'm entering my 6th year as president of Clearwater Little League. It'll actually be my final year as my child ages out. I've been proud of our league and what we've done in the past 6 years under my presidency with my strong board of directors, and works with Carla and Ken and Michelle and all them there at the Parks and Rec Department. We're very proud of our facility. We host many tournaments. We've seen our numbers grow from when I first came in as president, from 170 members to now we're at 330 families within our organization. Competitively, also, you got to have the competitiveness on the field, bringing in district championships on baseball and softball side. So to have this project now beautify our park even more, our families will be forever grateful for it, to battle the heat that's out there on those nice summer days. Because if you ever visited the park, a lot of the families huddle underneath the awnings around the concessions area, so now they'll be a little bit closer to the fields of play with the shade provided on the bleachers, and the children be able to see their parents not in the crowd sea of people underneath the concession area. So again, we thank you guys with the support of the city and the Parks and Rec Department to have this project moving forward, and can't wait to see it happen.
we thank you for the partnership. It will be a great amenity for everybody. If you could fill out a comment card, I still need one.
Yes, sir.
Please. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Dave Shefferman, President of Countryside Little League. Want to thank the mayor and the council for the opportunity, and basically to come and say thank you to you guys for your commitment to the Parks and Rec Department, and basically the direct effect it has on the citizens and the families. Countryside Little League has this fall registered right at 300 kids on the field. Boys and girls really enjoying themselves and getting out, and we kind of like to form a community within the community, and we really think that this project is going to enhance the experience of parents, grandparents coming out and watching their kids. So I just wanted to thank you guys, and also thank a couple people from the Parks and Rec. Obviously, Jim and Mike Lockwood has been great to work with, directly reflecting for this project. And then on the partnership we deal with, Carla and Michelle and Ken on a daily basis is just been fantastic to deal with. So we really appreciate your commitment, and it shows not only with these future shade structures, but the quality of fields that the kids are able to play on, and just other organizations that come in from other cities, Tarpon, Oldsmar, Largo. They just always really enjoy coming to our parks, because it's kind of a step above what maybe other cities maybe commit to parks. So we really appreciate it, and we thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all the volunteer hours. It makes the whole system work. So, anyone else to speak to this item? Do I have a motion to approve item 10.1?
Motion to approve agenda item 10.1.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Mr. Jennings, anything else from
No,
you?
sir.
Mr. Kohler?
No, unless you want me to read another ordinance.
No, no. That's quite all right. You've done a marvelous job. pinch hitting for Mr. Margolis, but I think I started from my left last time, so I'll start from my right this time. Closing comments.
All right, just wanted to say that the jazz holiday ended Sunday. It was a great jazz holiday. We had a lot of people out there on all nights, but everybody's looking forward to having it next year back in their home in the park, as I am. And maybe we go back to 4 days again, Thursday through Sunday. I wanted to just mention, too, that today I was down in St. Pete. They had the downtown pretty much closed off because today is the first day, the ribbon cutting of the PSTA Sunrunner, which is the BRT that Bus Rapid Transit. It's the first premium bus service we have that runs from downtown St. Petersburg to the beaches and back. It's a loop. It has its own bus lane, and it has a 15-minute interval between buses. And tomorrow, the first riders will be able to ride it. The first 500 people that ride the Sunrunner, and by the way, the first 6 months it's free, so it doesn't cost you anything. But if you're the first 500 riders, you'll get a Sunrunner Gold card that'll give you discounts to all the merchants on the route going to the beaches and back. So it's a great deal to go down there and give it a try. So I wanted to show you, today we was involved in cutting the ribbon, and here's a piece of it right here.
A big ribbon.
So it's the first 10 miles of a leg that hopefully will go all the way up 275. We're working on it, but we had we had all the council from St. Pete, the county commission, and all the board members of PSA there today. It was a big event, so it was very exciting. That's it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I just want to say that voting is underway. If you get a mail ballot, you should have your mail ballot at home if you haven't already mailed it in. To date, as of today, a little over 10% of Pinellas registered voters have already voted. That's over 70,000 people. Again, if you have your mail ballot at home, be sure to put it in the mail. Postage is paid. You don't need to put a stamp on it. If you want to vote in person, that begins on Monday, October 24th. You can vote right here in downtown Clearwater at the Pinellas County Courthouse, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. You can also vote at Countryside Rec Center as well, 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., Monday, October 24th through November 6th, which is a Sunday. You can also drop off your mail-in ballot at those two locations. There are other vote-in-person locations throughout the county, but those are the closest ones. And then finally, I just want to mention that this Saturday, October 22nd, is the 30th anniversary of Paint Your Heart Out, where volunteers in the greater community, Clearwater community, paint the homes of lower income or income-constrained residents. They've painted over 300 homes over the last 10 years. This Saturday, we'll be painting 10 homes. And I just wanted to thank, there are a number of city staff that have volunteered to help paint those homes as well, so thank you to them. And it's going to be a great weather day, thankfully, so it should be a really nice event. So I wanted to just thank the volunteers who are going to come out, and happy to be part of that tradition.
Councilmember Walker.
I wanted to talk to people who may be concerned about Scientology and the downtown Bluff vote. I urge you all to vote yes for Clearwater. Scientology has no connection to these developers. This is an incredibly powerful, well-financed, and well-experienced team of developers who are working on this, and they're not going to be intimidated by Scientology. And when they finish building the apartments, up to 600 apartments for our downtown, when we have the amphitheater rocking, we're going to turn the downtown around like you wouldn't believe. So there are a couple things that people always say worried about this, and let me just quickly address those. It's creepy downtown. Well, I understand that. When I first came here, it was creepy for me too. But then I started working downtown, and it became my downtown. And if you come downtown, there's really no reason to be concerned. It feels creepy because we've heard so many decades of stories about horrible things that Scientology's management has done. But you can sit alone in your room at night and say, I think there's somebody behind me, and you can creep yourself out. So a lot of that is in our minds. Believe me, when we have all of these people living, working, and playing downtown, it's going to be a beautiful thing. Also, people say, I don't want to give a nickel to Scientology, so I'm not going to eat at a restaurant. Well, for heaven's sakes, most of the restaurants, they're not owned by Scientologists. The workers aren't Scientologists. A restaurant like Clear Sky is in a building owned by a Scientologist, but let me say this, that Scientologist is doing the right thing. He's allowing a business to not only operate, but to thrive. And that's what we need. The real problem are the Scientologist parishioners and Scientology itself, who spent over $100 million buying up all the properties to leave them vacant. That's what we need to object to. And, you know, it's going to be to the benefit of everybody, including the folks who are trying to make a living with these restaurants, if we get past that and just come downtown and have a wonderful time. So I urge everybody to please vote yes for Clearwater, and we can stand up to David Miscavige and say no to him. Thanks.
Councilmember Teixeira.
I want to speak to two items tonight. First, Mayor Hibbert has spearheaded quite an ambitious initiative to educate the citizens of Clearwater regarding the referendum and the bluff and all the details and logistics of it. And I have been personally very pleased with the amount of support that I have heard. However, I'm not naive, and coming freshly out of a campaign, I am aware quite acutely of the various opinions by our citizens regarding downtown. From those who share my passion and tenacity for the revitalization efforts of downtown, to those who are apathetic and have given up, and everything in between. But at the end of the day, when all is said and done, I believe that a downtown is the heart of its city. And our heart has been sick, and it's not been able to nourish its body. As a matter of fact, the body's overcompensating for it. So I believe that the time has come with this development of the bluff, in conjunction with Imagine Clearwater, we have found the perfect remedy to heal the heart so that this city has a downtown that is not only self-sufficient, but can contribute to the city. So I am asking everyone to please consider voting yes for Clearwater on November the 8th. Secondly, I'd like to expand on the closing comments I made last council, where I really wanted to focus on the positive rather than continued spotlighting the negative. And tonight, specifically, I want to focus on those people who have embodied and embraced the spirit of being a good Samaritan, and focus on those who are representing Clearwater in the Hurricane Ian relief efforts. And I'm just going to cite some examples. We have had 2 fire inspectors from Clearwater go to these areas to assist in written assessments, 15 Clearwater police officers assisting in helping with safety and prevention of looting, and 6 staff from Parks and Recs who assisted in cleaning the downed trees and limbs. We've also had local restaurants who have supplied 4,000 meals. I want to shine the light on them. So I want to thank them for going above and beyond and making Clearwater proud.
Thank you. I want to thank and congratulate Peace Memorial Presbyterian Church. They do concerts every second Sunday. They are free, and they will be going on for the next 7 months, so I'd encourage people to catch those in November and the months to follow. The Florida Orchestra opened up. As Councilmember Albritton said, Jazz Holiday was dynamite. We thank the Phillies for hosting Jazz Holiday this final year. We look forward to them being back in their normal home down in Coachman Park starting in 2023. Attended the YMCA prayer breakfast today, and it was great to see Dr. Grego back. He did a marvelous job for 10 years in our county of increasing graduation rates, and we had Sarah Painter there, who was Teacher of Pinellas and Teacher of the Year for the entire state. On a sad note, we lost two real stalwarts in our community this past week. The first is Gus Stavros. And Gus was an incredible contributor to this community. He's one of the founding members of Ruth Eckerd Hall. He started Enterprise Village, which is a place that kids can go and experience starting a business and understanding commerce. And he was also one of the founders of the Pinellas County Education Foundation. He did a marvelous job. He was an incredible person to sit down and talk to, and we are poorer for his passing, but we are richer for all he's done in this community. And the second person was really the foundation of our Parks and Rec department, Mr. Reem Wilson. And if you travel on McMullen Booth Road, you will see that the trail was named for him. And he was an incredible gentleman. And sadly, we lost him this week. But his fingerprints are all over the city with our Parks and Recreation Department, and they will live on for many decades to come. And so we send out our condolences to both of those families and thank them for the gentlemen they were and the impact they had on our community. With that, we are adjourned. God bless.